people, when they look at failure, it's like, oh, well, you did this thing and then you don't do it anymore, so that's a failure. But you talk a lot about those skills, and entrepreneurship is a huge part of like what both of us do. And I really like the way you articulate the pros and the cons of it, but you compare it to real world. And the example I took from it was, we're training jujitsu, I had some MMA fights and boxing. I'm not Justin Gaethje, I'm not Ilia Topuria, and I'll never be even close to that. Like amateur guys would whoop my ass. But does that mean that those skills that I've learned from training in those rooms and getting my black belt and doing all these things aren't something that's setting me up for other things in life? And I think all the skills that you've taken from all the things you've done, from having to reinvent yourself a bunch of different times, take risks, be patient, trust the process, probably what allows you, when somebody does get to the point in their life where they have an incubation period, they don't have to freak out or wonder like, how are my bills going to get paid, or where's my self-worth now? Like, you get to actually sit there and be comfortable in your skin and explore your options. And I feel like the only reason you're able to do that is because of all those quote unquote risky things that you did back then. And the reason I bring it up is because I had a guy on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was, kind of shitting on entrepreneurship. He was like, there's nothing wrong with driving a truck. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with driving a truck if that's what you're happy with. I go, but you look at the rooms that you're in, and there's only 30 people out of 100,000 that are willing to pay to play to show up to be in that room, to really learn how to live an extraordinary life from somebody else. And those risks you're willing to take, you might not see immediately the payoff of those, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years, all those little small decisions you made, this is where they pay off and it turns into. And it's like all those people that didn't take those risks now, they feel like the entrepreneur journey you took is risky, but I thought you said it better than I've heard anybody else, where, where's the risk in doing what you're doing? Like, isn't there risk in life? Inflation, job instability, debt, loss of income? Like, why does nobody talk about that risk? Because that's the risk I see more people hit every day than the risk of actually swinging the bat and going after the life you want, man. So deep stuff.
It has never in my life been more true that standing still is risky, right? Never. For a long time, I felt like we were just like shouting into the wind, saying this, but like now it's so abundantly clear that like, and look, here's the thing, right? There is nothing wrong with driving a truck. There is nothing wrong with driving a truck. The only problem is we haven't been driving trucks since the dawn of humanity, okay? There was a start to that, and it looks to me like there's going to be an end to that. Like, I'm sorry. These companies are starting to driverless trucks right now. They're happening right now. I like in my healthcare podcast that I do, we cover all the news stories, and I think 2 weeks ago, we just covered Wall Street Journal talking about all the driverless trucks that are hitting the roads in Texas right now. So it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with these things, but you just have to understand they're not none of these things are a birthright, and yet and still the rent is due. So what are you going to do if that is taken away? What are you going to do if companies decide they would rather have the AI drive the trucks as opposed to, you can protest, you can do all these other things, but I don't know how productive that's going to be at the rate of change that the world is in right now, So look, I'm with you on that front, right? I think about entrepreneurship as full contact economics. I don't even think about it like, oh, you're into business or you're into creating stuff. I look at it as, the way that the economy works, it is about trade. It is about exchanging value for something, value for something, and getting something in return that you can either eat, clothe yourself with, put a roof over your head, keep the heat from cooking you, but exchange, there's an exchange of value that is there. And jobs are often a very muted version of that, right? The trade-off is you don't have to deal with, general liability insurance. You don't have to deal with swings in the market. You don't have to deal with supply chain issues. You don't have to deal with, bank loan rates going up. You don't have to deal with all these other things that entrepreneurs and business leaders have to deal with in full contact economics. Fine. But also you're not the decider. The trade-off is you're not the decider. And if someone decides that your number on that line item is no longer producing the value, you have little to no say about that, and that is just simply not a position I am willing to put myself in. Or that I should just say I'm excited to put myself in. I mean, if I had to do it, if that was, if all my businesses crumble and I had to go work, I would do it 100%, no question. But like, I'm not excited to do that when I have the tools, the gifts to be able to do this version where I have more control, right? Where I have the control to control my time, to be able to be there for my family when they want me to, and I don't have to ask somebody if I need to clock out or any of those kinds of things. Again, this is no knock on that. I'm not knocking that, because we live in a big society and everyone plays a part and everyone plays a role. But if you want to poke at entrepreneurship, you're in a glass house, my friend.